Hi guys, this is Lalana. Welcome to the Sovereign Path. So today we're going to talk about the story, right? The story that we all tell, the story that everybody tells, and how that story keeps repeating in our lives, right? So most of my content is focused on twin flames. But in the larger scale of things, most of my content is focused on the awakening path, on the ascension path, on the alchemical path that a lot of us are experiencing here in this third dimensional reality right now. And this includes the twin flame path. So these mingle together, they are one and the same. It's just that if you are a twin flame and you are on a twin flame path, then you are experiencing your same self as the catalyst for your awakening, as opposed to if you are not a twin flame, there was a different catalyst for your awakening, right? That's really the only differentiation. So what story are we telling, right? Every day, all day, for however many years, since we've been a child, since we've been a teenager, and what themes are going along within those stories. It's the stories that we tell that basically sort of hold us into these patterns and these programs, these imprints, these wounds, all of these things that we've been carrying around with us for however many lifetimes as we've been experiencing duality as souls in form, right? Incarnation here on earth. So the story as applied to this path, and specifically as applied to the twin flame path, is what is going to keep you in loops, right? It is what keeps us going around in circles and hitting the same walls or the same dead ends or coming to the same sort of conclusions over and over again, because the story that we tell based on what our ego mind is saying, based on what our thoughts are saying, based on what the emotional body is reacting to, dependent on what the thoughts are saying, and then how we sort of create that imaginary situation, whether that's a future projection of what we wished would have happened in this particular experience that we had, based on the past, or what we hope will happen, you know, based on an imaginary experience that we're hoping to have, right? So all of these are just these like sort of entanglements of sort of knots, really, of creating these loops and these nets and all of these sort of things that we have sort of woven together as humanity, as the collective, you know, at large. At large we have done this. Everyone has done this. And it isn't a right or a wrong or a good or a bad, and I'll probably say that in every video that I ever make. It just is. It just is. And this is a byproduct of the third dimensional reality experience of living in duality and polarization and separation consciousness. That is the way that we have been conditioned in this reality to move from the mind always, and to identify with the mind, and to identify with the ego, and identify with the emotional body, and then to create stories around that. And normally we're doing this, sometimes we're doing it consciously, but a lot of times we're doing it unconsciously. It's just what the mind does. The mind is constantly talking. 24/7, the mind is constantly talking. And dependent upon how much of that we are listening to in our day-to-day life and our day-to-day routine, and then dependent upon how many stories we are weaving around how much we are listening to our inner mind, really dictates what's going on in our everyday, current, external reality, right? What things are showing up for us. But to break that down to like a smaller, microcosm of individuality on the twin flame path, it's saying that if I am constantly saying or creating the same story around my twin flame path, around my divine masculine specifically, because I know mostly it'd be divine feminines watching my content. If I'm creating that story around how my divine masculine is feeling, what they might be going through, if they're having their awakening, you know, do they feel the same things I feel, or, you know, these things which I've talked about the whole time I've been making content on this channel. These things will keep you in loops, right? That's a given, we know that. But above and beyond that, so if we are looking back into a past experience, say 3 weeks ago, a year ago, however long ago, 2 days ago, where we had an interaction with our divine masculine, right? That interaction may have gone wonderfully, and right, and we're riding on a high based on that interaction that we had. Or that interaction may have gone really shitty, and we're ruminating over how shitty that was and how we wish things would have been different. Either way, the mind is creating a story based on the past, right? Based on a past event that has happened. And instead of taking that event for face value, for just what it is, this is what happened in the now moment, and I accept that this is what happened. Most of the time we don't do that. Most of the time our imagination likes to run crazy with it. So if something that we perceive as negative, right, if the mind perceives as negative, we got in an argument with the twin, we got triggered by the twin, you know, we got ghosted by the twin. The twin came in our life for 3 or 4 days and then had some excuse and left again, right? And so we are creating a negative narrative on that past experience, right? And we're ruminating over that, thinking like, well, if I would have done this, I could have said this differently. You know, if they wouldn't have done this, then I would have done that, and da 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 da, and da 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 da. And the next thing you know, you've spent 2 hours, right, breaking all of this down. Even if it's not a twin flame, feminines do this. We do this, right? No matter if it's like someone that you dated in your past and not a twin flame, a soulmate, a karmic, a non-family, soul family member, we tend to do that as feminine in this reality. We tend to break every single solitary little specific detail down and then analyze the shit out of it. I don't know a feminine that does not do that until you have actually come into a full-blown awakening and you are on ascension path and you realize how detrimental that is, right? But up until that point, that's what we do. That's what the feminine does. That's why the feminine remembers every single solitary thing that has happened in every single romantic encounter that they have ever had in their whole life. That's what we do, right? That's what we do. That's normal. We think that is normal as the feminine. That's what your friends do. That's what your mom does. That's what your grandmother did, right? Your sister. It's what the feminine does. They break things down into details, and then they remember those things and they go over them over and over and over again, trying to understand what happened in that past event. Why did it play out that way? What happened with that? What went wrong with that? You know, whatever it is. Or if it was a positive experience that you had, then the feminine runs in the opposite direction with it. Well, this could mean this, and this could mean this, and oh my gosh, and that means maybe we're coming into union, and maybe what I'm doing is actually working, and well, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but maybe this is what's this, and this is what's this, and now we're way off in the future, creating all of these other things, right? So we're either in the past, breaking down every detail of what went wrong and what we could have done differently, or we're way in the future, creating a story around what all of this stuff means and what it's going to like conspire into and what it's going to create and all of these sort of things. Missing the point, and this is the point on an awakening path, always, 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 missing the now moment, right? Missing being here now and seeing that as this event happened in the past. Yes, I can learn from that. I can. Right? If this was a negative experience, if this was a triggering experience, yes, I can learn from that. Yes, I can have a reflection of that. right? Do I need to look at that for a minute or two and see like, what was triggering for me? What came up for me? What exactly happened there? Yeah. And that's it. And then you come back into the now moment and you move from it, from that place, right? But we generally don't do that. We're still telling the story about that, right? Sometimes for years. Sometimes for years, because the feminine remembers every single solitary event. All of it. We remember all of it, right? We hear a song that remembers us, reminds us of something that happened, and the next thing you know, you're in some other world that you experienced 10, 15, 20, 6 months ago, whatever, right? And you're off with it. Or, same thing. This thing happened and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. But instead of allowing that to just be the experience that it was, whether it was the past good, whether it was the past great, whatever it was, instead of just allowing that to be, we have moved and run with it in a different direction and created all of these stories around it. This is what keeps us in loops. We don't accept what is. The mind. The mind doesn't accept what is. The mind doesn't know how to be here now. The mind doesn't know how to stay in the present moment, right? So staying in that present moment and not creating all of these stories, this is where you move from. This is the only place you can move from, right? And when we're going off in a tangent in one direction or another, it's no different from all the other content that I've been sharing, that you're separating yourself from yourself. Because now you've shifted into either like having this massive amount of suffering and desperation and wanting and hoping and what went wrong and I don't understand and da-da-da-da-da. Or on the opposite end, you're going like, this is the most amazing thing ever and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? It's this way. But it's not this way. It's not here. And this is the only thing that actually exists, is right here in the now moment, over and over and over, every now and every now and every now. And this is the only place that you can move from. And so if we're always thinking about what happened in the past, then we can't move from the present. We're keeping the past energy alive by creating stories around it. What I could have done, should have done, would have done, didn't do, they did, blah, blah, blah. I'm keeping that energy alive and active of a past that no longer exists. But I'm keeping it in existence because of the stories that I am telling around it. So instead of seeing that as a trigger and acknowledging that, yes, I got triggered, instead of seeing that and saying, okay, let me go within now then. The twin flame path, as I keep saying, this is the path to self-love. This is about coming back into union with self. So every trigger that comes up is a gold mine. Every trigger that comes up is just showing you there is a block here that is keeping me from me. There's a block here that is keeping me from my ultimate freedom. I've said this so many times. The twin flame path and what the divine masculine, the physical aspect of the divine masculine is reflecting back to you. They are giving you the keys to unlock the cage that you have been in. They are. This is the ultimate gift. It's one of the things about this path that we don't talk about a lot. Like, I don't hear people talk about that. That if you're going through a normal awakening path, normal, like what does that even mean? It doesn't. If you're going through an awakening path where your divine masculine wasn't your trigger for your activation, you don't have that same sort of feedback. You have it from everything around you. You do. You have it from everything around you. But it's a completely different thing. It's the same thing because it's awakening, but it's a different vehicle into that awakening, and it's a different vehicle navigating the awakening, right? Because you have your same self reflecting back to you yourself at any given moment, whether it's energetic or whether it's physical, right? It doesn't have to be physical interactions for you to have those triggers. It can be energetic as well. And those triggers are saying like, hey, you know, I'm helping you through this thing. You don't have to do this alone. That's the thing about the twin flame path, is that we feel like, you know, I'm just out here doing this shit on my own, blah, 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 blah. You know, this is why we get into, you know, the twin flame chat rooms and the groups and the forums and all of these sort of things. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we aren't in the awareness, the majority of us aren't in the awareness that you're never walking this path alone. You are not alone. You're not alone. And I could say, yes, of course, like, you know, you are all that is, you are God, you are source, you are creation. So of course you are love and abundant and all of the things that I always say. And yes, this is true in the macrocosm of all that is, and I will continue to talk about that. In the microcosm, where things get sort of more like refined or nuanced and sort of spread out into all of these different experiences that we are having, we have these, you know, guides, you know, we have the nudges, we have the guides, we have all of these things that are assisting us on awakening path, whether they be a bird, right, whether they be numbers, whether they be whatever they may be. But the thing with the twin flame path that is different, and in comparison to, you know, the normal awakening path, I don't know what word to use because that's not the correct word, is that the twin flame path, they're guiding you the whole damn time. Your divine masculine is with you the whole damn time. It's just a different vehicle into this. Is someone's divine masculine with them on a normal awakening path? Yep, that too, because we are all feminine and masculine within. Everyone. This isn't just exclusive to twin flames. It's just that twin flames have chosen to have this experience as the one soul incarnate in two bodies to assist the one to shift out of this. And so every trigger that we're having, instead of seeing it as, or even the great things, right? My twin flame has come back in and we're communicating and I'm doing the work and it feels really awesome and all this sort of, stay there with that. Be in that moment. Accept that for what it is. Accept the trigger for what it is as well. Instead of running off with it and creating some other sort of situation, right? It's being here now. It's being present. It's staying in that place of not paying attention to every single solitary thought that comes up into your mind and every reaction that you have to those thoughts. This is what keeps us out of balance, right? It's what keeps us out of balance. It's what keeps us doing that shifty up and down and loop and all of these sort of things. It's the mind that's doing that, right? And the mind that's doing that is what is taking us out of that alignment with self. It's what's shifting us out of that inner union, right? And so having that story going round and round and round and ruminating and having those obsessive thoughts, whether there's sadness or whether they're elation, is still not in presence. It's still not in neutrality. It's still not in oneness. Because we can be just as joyful as and excited and enthralled as we could possibly get. But we don't stay there. You can't stay there. Just like you're not going to stay feeling like shit forever. You're not going to feel staying like, you know, completely elated forever either. Right? The balance has to correct itself, and it will. And so when it corrects itself, where are you then? Where are your thoughts then? So if you've been in a place where you've been feeling like shit for however long and you've been telling stories about that, and then one day you start to feel better about it, and then you're just like, oh, I can breathe again. It's not so bad. God, I was feeling like shit for like a week, but now I'm feeling better again. And then you sort of realize, and you wonder to yourself, like, well, gosh, why did I do that to myself? A lot of people have that sort of aha. I was just, you know, kind of keeping that pain going for longer than I needed to. I wasn't just feeling it and allowing it to be. I wasn't staying in the present moment. You know, I was going round and round and round. And now I feel better, right? Now that energy has transmuted, and now I feel better. Is it going to come back? Well, depends. Depends on how you're dealing with it. But just the same as you're in this elation place of having this awesome, you know, interaction with your twin, or your twin has come back, or whatever else, that too is going to come down and have to be balanced. Both of these have to be balanced. We don't stay in hell forever. We don't stay in elation forever. We have to come back into the balance, right, within. And so the less that we tell stories about this or about this, and the more that we just stay here in the present, this is what it is. This is what is showing up in my world right now. This is what's showing up in my world right now, right? Let me deal with what's showing up here. Not telling stories about this and not projecting out into that, but just right here. This is another way that you walk this path. So that's what I have for you guys. I hope that that helps, and I hope that it's aligned. Have an awesome day.